Well, hello, my friends. Did you ever feel the need to make a space cardigan using the technique called cording? No. Well, I did, and today I'm going to share with you how I did it. So hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Tina. Thank you for stopping by. In my last videos, actually my two last videos, I have been talking about this cardigan that I want to make and using this special technique. Of course, I collected tons of inspiration for this cardigan. I am really crazy about that. Diving deep into a whole, sort of disappearing into a cave over on Pinterest and hardly ever getting out again. But there are lots of inspiration, and especially I like the old-fashioned ones. This method has been used for example, armor, or to keep you protected from wearing metal armor closest to the body. It has been used for warmth, of course, because it makes the material way warmer. And cording has also been used quite a lot in underwear, in corsets and petticoats, to either make them support the body or actually stand out from the body. Okay, so the first thing you need to know about this cardigan is that it's part of my travel wardrobe. I made a video some time ago about planning this wardrobe, and I'm going and I will be going on an imaginary trip because I'm not actually planning to go anywhere. So this is just, fantasy world. And everything I'm going to use for making this wardrobe is from my stash. I'm not buying anything. And this fabric, cotton jersey, is no exception. And of course, as usual, I mean, this happens to me so much. When I unfold the fabric and actually lay out the pattern pieces, there's not enough fabric. Big surprise. So I had to skip the hoodie that I was planning. It just turned out to be a stand-up collar and so on. I also had to piece quite a few pieces, but I'll show you in the video just how I did that. And here we have the cording, Here we have the yarn, actually, that I used. I bought it from just an ordinary yarn store. And I put it in between layers of fabric, and I sandwiched it in between and put one seam on each side like this. And it gave a really nice three-dimensional effect. So I'm really pleased with this one. And did I actually make this cardigan like 3 months ago? Yes, I did. I just couldn't get my shit together to make a video because I didn't have any time. Life got in the way, but I'm back on track. So let's get started. And step number 1 was, of course, cutting everything out. As I said, I was a bit short on fabric, so here I am moving the pattern pieces around, just a few millimeters at the time, trying to squeeze them together to get it all cut out. Just moving it tiny distances, and also trying to reduce seam allowance in a few places. I started with 1 centimeter, but in the end some of the places were just half a centimeter, and that is totally enough when you join the pieces on a serger or a overlocker. And in the end, yes, I did it. Everything got cut out. Almost everything. And as I was fiddling around with these pieces, sort of all of the pieces at the same time, here you see me having several layers of fabric on top of each other. That's because I keep moving things back and forth. But as I said, I got almost everything cut from this fabric, but now I needed to piece a few pieces. That's a bit funny to say. So I had to pick another fabric, and it will be on the inside of the pockets and on the inside of the back yoke. So it will not be visible from the outside. I'm also choosing between 2 different zippers. I had the white one and the black one. And the white one is plastic, and I don't really like that. So the black one is what I'm going with. And that also means that I will use black fabric for the piecing. And this black fabric is a type of jersey. It's very thin. You can almost say it's like a sort of sportswear jersey, and that will also be suitable since this is one of the places on the cardigan that would be really thick is on the shoulders, so it's a good thing to use a thinner material. The orange one I really liked, but in the end I decided on black. Now it's already time to start with the pockets, front pockets, and first thing I do is starting with this cording. I'm inserting this yarn between the layers of fabric and stitching it in place. And as I said, this is an ordinary yarn that I bought from the yarn store. I guess you are supposed to make sort of like home decor, like bags perhaps, out of this. And this pocket is made out of 2 different pieces. There's a band sewn on along the edge where you put your hand in. And I am inserting this yarn along the edge, pinning it in place and then stitching it. And after that, I decided to put in a second line of yarn along the other edge of this band. And that was a bad decision. The first one looked really good, but the second one didn't work out. This material is not the same as the rest of the cardigan because I didn't have enough. And this is way too stretchy for this. As you can see here in the photo from the finished product, which I have been using, this seam is coming apart and it didn't look good to begin with either. I should have unpicked this, but it is as it is now. But luckily I realized that the black material that I used on the inside of the pockets was way too thin for pockets. Let's say I put keys in there, it would wear through the material in no time, so I added a second layer of white ordinary t-shirt jersey. So yeah, this cardigan is made out of a lot of different pieces. And here you can see the finished front piece with the seams across the top and the bottom of the pocket. And the pocket, it doesn't look nice. I should have seen this immediately. Well, I did see it immediately, but I didn't make any changes. I should have done that. I should have unpicked this. Now I have to live with it. Now let's move over to the zipper. I am pinning it along the front edge. I am leaving a little bit at the top that will go into the collar later. I'm pinning it upside down here and I am sewing along the zipper from the backside. I'm keeping the non-stretchy side up towards the presser foot, never the other way around. That prevents the stretchy material from stretching out. And I am evening out the other front piece because it was a bit rough along the edge after finishing the pocket. And after that, of course, it's time to pin the other front piece to the zipper. I am being very careful in matching up the seams and the edges. Here's a bit of extra material. You have to be very careful because this is really center front and it will be very visible if you make a mistake here. So be careful. I am also sewing this from the backside. It's important to sew in zippers in stretchy materials from the backside, from the non-stretchy side, and that is to avoid puckering and stretching out of the fabric, which is very common when you insert zippers in sweatshirts. And after that I am adding the inside cover for the zipper, doing the same thing, just pinning it along the edge with the zipper sandwiched in between, once again sewing along the seam and making sure to do it all the way from top to bottom, but the zipper don't go all the way down. And yeah, clearly I made a mistake with the choice of material for these pockets. And this doesn't look good. The top stitching is awful and I had to redo it a few times. But surprisingly, the rest of the material worked really fine with top stitching. But after that, it's time to go serious with the cording. Now I am starting on these shoulder wings, you could call them. I have sewn them together along the outer edge. I am marking the placements that I have marked on the pattern. I'm transferring them with pins, because I didn't want to use any kind of chalk or pen here. And then I sewed along this line that I marked, and now in between the layers of the fabric I am inserting this yarn or cord, and I'm placing it very close to the original seam, and that's a bit tricky, but after a bit of fiddling it worked out. And to be able to sew this I had to change the presser foot. I choose this one that I use for making, for example, zippers. It makes it possible for me to get really close to this raised cord to stitch it down in place. And here I am comparing how it looks compared to my original sketch, and it looks good, so I'm just struggling on with getting this cord in between the layers of fabric, and I am really happy with the result. But this did take a bit of time. It was important not to stretch this cord, for example, or yarn. That could very easily happen, and that would have wrinkled the fabric. And in the end, on the final line, it was absolutely impossible for me to get the hand in. I tried to use a fork and a pen, and in the end I succeeded. And here you can see the final result for the bottom of this shoulder piece, or what's covering the shoulder blades. And now let's move on to do the front of this. And here I started with cutting the strings to the right length and doing it all over again, but following an easier shape. It was way easier to get the strings into this one, and I am extremely happy with how this looks. This is so gorgeous. I'm just speechless, actually. So the final step for the yoke is to trim off these edges of the strings, and now I'm moving over to the sleeves. The sleeves are made in two parts. Number one, to give this shape of the elbow, a slightly bent shape, and number two, to make it easier to sew this decoration. So this is the lower half of the sleeve I am starting with. And after finishing both the parts of the sleeve, I just sew them together. And after that, I am trimming away the fabric that I use on the backside, because of course you need a backing, otherwise these yarns wouldn't have stayed in place. So now I'm just roughly trimming off this fabric. It's inside of the sleeves. I'm not really caring that much about how it looks. And since it's jersey, it doesn't need any overlocking or anything. And now we're moving over to the back side. Here I am joining together the two sides of the lower back. And the bottom half of these I was planning for making an opening. So my original plan was to have lacing along this opening, one on each side of the butt, basically. But I changed my mind about that later. Anyway, now it's time to join the bottom half of the backside with the top half. And in between that, sandwiching in the yoke that we just made. Here you can see the underside of the back piece that is pieced with a piece of black fabric. Lots of pieces there. And after joining this seam, this is what it looks like. You can see the black fabric underneath, not showing on the outer side, of course. And now we are adding the center piece to the back. I'm marking center back for the collar later. And I'm just pinning and sewing this one right side to right side from top to bottom here. And this is what it looks like when it's all done and pressed nicely. The back side of the cardigan is done. And now it's time to add the sleeves. And since they are raglan sleeves, the seams go on the diagonal under this shoulder piece. So here you sew the sleeves right side to right side with the back side. This is how it looks when it's all done. Now you see me pinning this shoulder piece to the front raglan sleeve. And the shoulder piece, the wing, if you would like, is bigger. As you can see, it's sticking up a little bit. And that's the way it's supposed to be because I designed it to be that way. I wanted that exaggerated effect. And I am pinning this along the seam, but the actual sewing of this seam I seem to have skipped filming. So in the next step you will see me preparing to sew the underarm seam, joining the sleeves together and back and front of this cardigan together, all in one go. And after that it's time to start with the collar. I had to cut it in two pieces, so there's the seam along center back, both on the inside and the outside. I am starting with that seam. I am first attaching the outer part of the collar to the cardigan. I am folding it in around the zipper and I am top stitching the zipper in place and finally attaching the inside of the collar to the cardigan. After that, it's time to start on the bottom edge. First, this rounded part in the front. This was a bit tricky to pin, but using a lot of notches or balance marks makes it easier. So these openings in the back where I wanted to use lacing, I changed my mind. Both the backside and the bottom band are all sewn together in one go, and instead I used this. I invented a kind of lacing that sits on top of it instead. I used loops of yarn that I sewed in place with by covering them up with these little squares of fabric. I don't really know how to describe this, but I guess you can see from the video. I put 2 strings into each set of loops, 1 on each side of the butt, and I left quite long strings to hang down and just to give a nice detail. And then the final touch, the cuffs for the sleeves. Just simple bands folded double over the edges of the sleeves, and with that the cardigan is done. Woohoo! And what do you know? You get no less than 2 reveals. First, a few photos that I took at home, but after that, I actually went on a trip somewhere. I went to Copenhagen with 3 friends. We stayed for 24 hours and we had such a great time, and they filmed me in my cardigan over and over again, and you will see lots of interesting photos. Now, first, before we move over to the trip, I would like to ask you if you like this video, because in that case you could give it a thumbs up and you could leave a comment, though I have to tell you I am bad at answering comments, but I love getting them. Or you could even think about subscribing to my channel. But thanks for watching anyway. See you soon. Bye bye.